They didn't kill her when they found her. That's the part no one tells you. When Roman soldiers finally cornered Cleopatra in her palace chambers in August of 30 BC, their orders weren't to execute Egypt's last pharaoh. They were told to keep her breathing, alive, intact, and completely powerless. Because Rome had learned something about conquest, it made simple murder look merciful by comparison. You don't just defeat your enemies, you curate them. You preserve them like specimens in amber, strip away every shred of agency they ever possessed, and then parade what's left through the streets, while crowds throw rotting vegetables at the husk of what used to be a queen. Cleopatra didn't die from an ass bite on August 10th. She died from something far more calculated, a process that turned one of the ancient world's most formidable rulers into a prop for someone else's victory parade. What happened in those final weeks wasn't assassination. It was systematic erasure with a pulse. The moment Alexandria surrendered, Cleopatra's palace stopped being hers. Roman soldiers didn't storm it, they cataloged it. Every room was mapped. Every corridor was reassigned. Guards appeared at thresholds she'd walked through for 2 decades, now standing there with dead eyes and instructions to monitor her every movement. Ancient sources describe how they removed sharp objects from her quarters. Mirrors disappeared. Cosmetics were searched, not for poison necessarily, but for anything that might give her control over her own fate. They confiscated her seals, the official stamps that had authorized edicts across an empire. They took her ceremonial regalia. They inventoried her jewelry like warehouse stock. Plutarch records that soldiers were specifically instructed to prevent self-harm, which sounds almost compassionate until you realize what it actually meant. She wasn't allowed to choose death. That choice belonged to Rome now, along with everything else. She could still move around certain areas of the palace, but every request required approval. Want to see your children? Submit it in writing. Need to speak with an attendant? Only if that attendant has been cleared. Hungry? Food will arrive when the schedule permits, and it will be inspected first, because we need to make sure you're not hiding poison in your own dinner. This wasn't imprisonment in any traditional sense. Prisoners know their sentence. Prisoners have trials. Cleopatra had neither. She existed in a state of permanent administrative limbo, where every aspect of her existence was subject to review by people who wouldn't even use her title anymore. Official correspondence referred to her as the Egyptian, or simply the woman. 21 years of ruling one of the ancient world's wealthiest kingdoms, and now she was a pronoun. The genius of Roman cruelty wasn't in what they did to her body. It was in what they did to time itself. Days passed without resolution. Cleopatra sent messages requesting an audience with Octavian. Those messages were acknowledged, but not answered. She submitted proposals for negotiation. They were logged and filed. She asked about her children's safety. The requests were processed through proper channels, which meant they disappeared into a bureaucratic void where urgent questions went to suffocate. Every unanswered message, every delayed response, every meeting that got rescheduled reinforced the same reality. She couldn't initiate anything anymore. She could only react. And Rome controlled what she was reacting to. When Octavian finally granted her audience on August 3rd, it wasn't a negotiation. It was theater. The meeting happened in her own palace, in rooms she'd occupied for years, but the space had been completely reconfigured. Roman soldiers stood at every entrance. The furniture had been rearranged. Scribes attended, not advisors, because this wasn't about reaching agreements. It was about documentation. Cleopatra reportedly tried to justify her alliance with Mark Antony, presented financial records, offered access to royal treasuries, proposed terms for her children's safety. Octavian listened. He nodded. He acknowledged her points. Then he left without committing to anything. The meeting lasted less than an hour and accomplished exactly nothing, except convincing Cleopatra that negotiation was still possible. Which was the entire point. As long as she believed outcomes remained undecided, she'd stay compliant. She'd wait for the next meeting, the next message, the next opportunity to bargain her way out of a situation that had already been decided the moment his soldiers walked through her doors. But here's where Roman efficiency gets truly grotesque. They didn't just want to humiliate Cleopatra, they wanted to archive her. Octavian's triumph, the victory parade being planned for the following year in Rome, REQIRED physical evidence of conquest. You couldn't just declare victory over Egypt. You had to demonstrate it, and demonstration meant bodies. Specifically, it meant Cleopatra walking through Roman streets in chains while crowds jeered at the foreign seductress who'd corrupted their beloved Mark Antony. Except keeping a captive alive and transportable for months presented logistical challenges. She needed to survive the journey from Alexandria to Rome. She needed to remain presentable. And most importantly, she needed to be prevented from exercising the one form of control she still possessed, choosing when and how she died. Rome's obsession with keeping Cleopatra alive had nothing to do with mercy and everything to do with spectacle. A dead queen before the triumph would be a bureaucratic inconvenience. A live queen refusing to walk during the parade would be a disaster. But a perfectly preserved corpse, or better yet, a compliant captive who understood exactly how powerless she'd become, that was ideal. So the guards watching her weren't just preventing escape. They were preventing autonomy of any kind. Every meal was inspected not just for poison, but for anything she might hoard and use later. Every visitor was screened. Every moment was supervised. She lived in a state of enforced helplessness, where even basic human functions required Roman approval. And this went on for days that bled into weeks, each one identical and suffocating, while Rome prepared the infrastructure for her humiliation. Then there were the children. Cleopatra had 4, and Rome handled each one with the cold precision of accountants sorting assets. Her eldest son, Caesarion, represented a problem too dangerous to parade. The 17-year-old had been publicly acknowledged as Julius Caesar's biological heir, which made him a potential rallying point for anyone who questioned Octavian's claim to Caesar's legacy. Too many Caesars is not good, one of Octavian's advisors supposedly said, and Caesarion was quietly executed shortly after Alexandria fell. No trial, no public announcement, just removed from the equation, like a line item being deleted from a budget. But the 3 younger children, her twins with Mark Antony and their youngest brother, were different. They were old enough to walk, but young enough to be reprogrammed. So Rome took them, not as prisoners, but as inventory being redistributed. They were moved to different quarters in the palace, given Romang attendance, started learning Latin, and Cleopatra was allowed to see them at first, during supervised visits that gradually became less frequent, till finally they stopped entirely. Not because she'd done anything wrong, because the transition period was complete. Her children were Roman property now, being prepared for transport to Rome, where they'd be raised in Octavian's sister's household and taught to forget they'd ever been Egyptian royalty. Imagine understanding, with perfect clarity, that your children are alive and healthy and being well cared for, and that you will never hold them again. Not because they're in danger, because they're being processed. That's the psychological torture Rome specialized in. It wasn't dramatic. It didn't involve hot irons or breaking wheels. It was the slow, methodical removal of every human connection and every source of meaning until all that remained was a breathing body waiting for Rome to decide what to do with it. And Cleopatra, who spoke 9 languages and had negotiated with Julius Caesar and commanded naval fleets and stabilized an empire that was fracturing at every border, couldn't do anything except watch as the people and purposes that had defined her existence were systematically cataloged and shipped away. When she died on August 10th, roughly 10 days after Alexandria fell, the method remains genuinely unclear. Plutarch mentions an asp hidden in figs. Dio Cassius suggests poison. Some historians propose a hollow hairpin. Others think guards assisted her. The mechanism matters less than what happened next, because Rome's response to her death revealed what her captivity had actually been designed to achieve. Octavian didn't cancel the triumph. He didn't even delay it significantly. He just adjusted the presentation. When the Egyptian triumph finally rolled through Rome's streets nearly a year later, Cleopatra appeared as a large effigy, a representation of her lying on a couch with an asp attached. The symbolism was perfect. Egypt's last pharaoh killed by her own royal serpent, theatrical and self-destructive and irrational. Except beside that statue, Rome paraded her 3 surviving children through the streets in chains. Alexander Helios, Cleopatra Selene, and Ptolemy Philadelphus, ages 11, 11, and 7, walking through crowds while a representation of their dead mother was carried behind them. They weren't harmed. They were evidence. Evidence that Egypt wasn't just conquered but absorbed, and that absorption didn't require Cleopatra's cooperation. It only required her absence. The children survived and were integrated into Roman society. Cleopatra Selene eventually became queen of Mauritania, married to a Roman client king, minting coins and governing a kingdom. But not her kingdom, not Egypt. Her brothers disappeared from historical records entirely, absorbed into Roman society and erased from royal lineage. This was the final consequence of those weeks in captivity. Not Cleopatra's death, but the complete redirection of her legacy. Rome didn't need to erase her from history. It needed to control which version of her survived, and it succeeded perfectly. For 2,000 years, the dominant image of Cleopatra hasn't been the multilingual administrator who managed famine relief and economic reform. It hasn't been the naval commander who deployed 60 ships at Actium. It's been the seductress on the couch with the snake, theatrical and tragic, and ultimately self-destructive. That version was constructed in Rome, displayed in Rome, and transmitted through Roman sources. Shakespeare immortalized it. Hollywood visualized it. Popular culture repeated it endlessly. The woman who governed Egypt for 21 years had no voice in how she'd be remembered, because Rome had already filed her away in the specific category it needed. Foreign threat neutralized exotic danger, contained cautionary tale about women who get too ambitious. Her final weeks weren't defined by poison or serpents. They were defined by process. Surveillance without interrogation. Detention without charge. Delay without resolution. Time without agency. Roman soldiers didn't torture Cleopatra. They just removed her ability to determine outcomes. And once that was gone, her physical presence became optional. She could die, and the triumph would proceed. She could live, and the triumph would proceed. The outcome was identical, and that realization, not the asp, was the actual mechanism of her destruction.